So for this question here, if you remember, when we have a line that bisects parallel lines, so if I have two parallel lines like this, and a line bisecting them, we can look for any number of patterns. And one of the first ones we can look for is called the C pattern. It looks like this. And we call these interior angles. But basically it says that this angle here and this angle here, the two angles inside that C, have to add to 180 degrees. They have to have a sum of 180 degrees. Well, if we look over here, even though it's backwards, there's our C pattern, which means that this angle and this angle must add to 180. So that means that x must be 180 degrees minus what's already used by the acute angle up here, the 49-degree angle. And that leaves us with 131 degrees. So the acute angle x here is 131 degrees, because the C pattern, two interior angles like that, add up always to 180. Now, the next pattern we sometimes look for, when we have two parallel lines with a line bisecting them, is what we call the Z pattern. So we make this Z shape just like this. And in a Z pattern, we can always say that this angle here and that angle there, so the two angles inside the letter Z, must be equal to one another. And that makes this question a really easy one then, because if you look over here, we have a Z pattern, which means that this angle here and that angle there must be equal to one another. So x must equal 49 degrees, so x is equal to 490 degrees. We call those alternate angles. That's the alternate angle theorem, that's Z pattern. Then you may have a question that looks like this. Here we have a line splitting a 90-degree angle. So it splits a 90-degree angle. We call these complementary angles, angles that add up to 190. But these two must then add up to 190. Or 100, not 190, just 90. So then, if we want to know what x is, well, x must just be 90 degrees, but take away what's already been used up, which is 52 degrees, which in this case we can then say x must be 38 degrees, just like that. And that's because we know that two angles that together make 90, make a right angle, have to add up to 90. We just need to make sure that we always recognize that symbol as being a 90-degree angle. Over here, we have what's sometimes called an X pattern. It's the opposite angle theorem. But basically, these don't have to be parallel or perpendicular or anything like that. When two lines cross, these two angles are equal to one another. Oh, that was a poor color choice. And these two angles are equal to one another. The angles opposite from one another are always equal to one another. So that must mean in this case that x is equal to 140 degrees. There it is. Second last, these are called supplementary angles. This is a straight line, which means that these two angles together have to give us a straight line, which is 180 degrees. So if together they must be 180 degrees, then x would just be 180 degrees less that 37 degrees, which in this case makes it 143 degrees. And the last example that we have for this particular question is something we call the F pattern. Right, technically they're called corresponding angles. But if we have two parallel lines, just like we see here, and they're split by a bisector, we can look for this F-shaped pattern, like that. And when we find the F-shaped pattern, this angle and this angle are equal. Well, if that's true, then we can look here, and 49 degrees and x have to be equal to one another, so x equals 49 degrees. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So any of these questions you look at, it's going to be one of these rules. And the nice thing is it's not like 3 or 4 of them combined. It's just one of these rules will get you there. I hope that helped.